The sun over the town of Oduma hung low and golden, spilling warmth across the corrugated rooftops and red clay streets. Evening wind carried the scent of roasted maize and fried plantain from the market square, while the hum of life drifted lazily into the home of Ife and her husband, Obinna. Their home stood on a quiet lane where the laughter of children and the crowing of roosters blended with the rhythm of family life. Ife stood before the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the hem of a floral dress she had bought for a wedding that weekend. Her brows creased slightly. The dress hugged her hips too tightly, the zip protesting every inch it climbed. She sighed. "Obinna," she called out softly, "this one won't do. It's choking me like an impatient python." Her husband appeared at the door, tall, with shoulders that once seemed to carry the world's kindness. "Let me return it for you tomorrow," he said, taking the folded dress in his hands. "I'll find another one your size." Ife smiled faintly, grateful for the gesture. Obinna was not always expressive with words, but he often showed care through small deeds, or so she thought. "Thank you, my husband," she said. "Don't forget to get something soft and flowy. Maybe blue." "Blue," he nodded, smiling briefly. "I remember." The next day, Obinna left early for the store. Ife spent the day tending to their children, Ayo and Muna, while her mother-in-law, Mama Obinna, watched them from the veranda. The old woman had been staying with them for some weeks, helping around the house. She was nearing 70, but her voice was still strong, and her eyes carried that unspoken authority of African mothers who had seen too much and spoken too little. By evening, Obinna returned. His face was unreadable, as always. He handed Ife the bag empty. "They didn't have the same dress," he said shortly. "Nothing worth buying." "Oh," she said, disappointed but not suspicious. "That's fine. Maybe another time." She didn't notice the subtle shift in his eyes, the kind that hides a shadow. The night passed like any other, until days later, a different story began to unfold. It was on a Thursday afternoon when Ife sat scrolling through the living room camera feed on her phone. The children were at school, and the house was quiet. She was checking if Mama had cooked as promised. But then, something strange caught her eye. On the screen, Mama Obinna sat comfortably on the couch, laughing at a television drama. But what struck Ife was not her laughter, it was what she wore. A skirt. A miniskirt, bright red, scandalously short, hugging her thighs like fabric fighting for air. Ife's heart skipped. That was not just any skirt. That was new. And she had never seen her mother-in-law in anything so revealing. Her eyes widened as realization struck like lightning, the market trip. The missing dress. The empty bag. Her breath caught. Obinna had bought that for his mother. A miniskirt. For a woman old enough to be his grandmother in spirit. And yet, he had told his wife nothing was worth buying. The room suddenly felt smaller. Her throat burned with questions. "What kind of madness is this?" she muttered. "A man who sees a skirt and thinks of his mother before his wife." She laughed bitterly. "Have I married a son or a stranger?" As she watched Mama shift on the couch, crossing her legs in that short skirt, Ife's stomach turned. The woman's posture was careless, almost indecent, especially around the children who sometimes came in unannounced. She felt a storm rising inside her, disbelief mixed with hurt, confusion, and something darker, disrespect. That evening, when Obinna returned home, the air in the living room was heavy, like clouds before rain. "Obinna," she said, standing firm. "Tell me, when you went to the store, did you find something worth buying?" He frowned. "I told you no." She looked at him, her lips trembling with restrained anger. "Then who bought your mother that red miniskirt she wore today?" Obinna froze. For a second, his face was blank, then defensive. "What do you mean?" "That's nothing serious." "Nothing serious." Her voice rose. You bought a skirt shorter than decency itself, for your mother, and lied to my face that you found nothing for me. You must think me blind. His tone turned sharp. Watch your mouth, Ife. That's my mother you're talking about. And I am your wife, she fired back, tears pricking her eyes. Is it your mother's style you want to see in this house or mine? What manner of son are you? Obina's jaw tightened. You've disrespected my mother. No, she said quietly, her voice trembling, you disrespected me first. He stormed out, leaving a silence heavy enough to drown in. That night, Ife could not sleep. Outside, the moon hung pale and watchful, like an elder spirit keeping secrets. Somewhere in the dark, an owl hooted, slow, mournful, and long. And in the quiet of her heart, Ife felt something ancient stir, a whisper older than time, carried through the winds of women who had endured and spoken only when the earth itself demanded truth. The spirits of the ancestors had begun to listen. That night, silence ruled the home of Ife and Obina. The air felt thick, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Outside, the moon gleamed cold and distant, and the wind brushed through the mango tree like a whispering spirit. Ife lay on her bed, her eyes open wide, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. Sleep would not come. Her heart throbbed with questions, not just about the skirt, but about what it revealed. It wasn't merely a cloth issue. It was something deeper, something unsettling that her spirit could not name. In many African tongues, they say, when the heart feels cold though the body is warm, the ancestors are stirring. She turned on her side and prayed softly, Great Creator, open my eyes to see what is hidden. At that moment, a gentle rustling sound came from the corner of the room. The curtain swayed though no breeze entered. Ife froze, clutching her wrapper. From the dim light, she saw something, a faint shimmer, like golden dust moving in slow circles. The air smelled faintly of calm wood and rain. Then she heard it, a whisper, soft and layered, like the voices of women speaking from under the earth. Ife, daughter of grace, truth must rise, even when it offends the night. Her lips trembled. Who speaks? But the whisper faded, replaced by the slow ticking of the wall clock. She sat up, trembling, yet strangely at peace. She had heard stories in her childhood of how the ancestors sometimes warned the living when the foundation of the home began to crack. Her grandmother used to say, when a woman's spirit is troubled, the soil she stands on feels it too. Now, Ife believed. The next morning, she moved quietly around the house. Obina had already left for work, his silence heavy like a curse. Mama Obina sat in the living room, humming to herself as she folded some wrappers. The red skirt, the one that had caused the storm, lay draped across a chair. Ife stared at it for a moment. The fabric seemed harmless in daylight, yet something about it made her uneasy. It shimmered faintly, almost unnaturally bright. She bent closer. There, near the hemline, was a faint symbol, woven into the thread, subtle but visible to careful eyes. It looked like a twisted knot, shaped like an eye with a teardrop in its center. A chill ran down her spine. That wasn't a fashion logo. That was an old mark, one she had seen only once before, in her grandmother's stories. The Eye of Kurako, the spirit of false gifts, a spirit known in many villages for entering homes through unholy exchanges. It was said that anything marked with that symbol carried envy, lies, and confusion wherever it went. Ife stepped back, her breath shallow. Could it be that the skirt was not just a poor choice of gift, but a doorway for darkness? As she pondered, Mama Obina suddenly turned, her eyes sharp. Why are you staring at that skirt like it's a ghost, my daughter? Ife forced a smile. It's just bright. The old woman chuckled. Bright things attract eyes, my dear. You young people like dull colors. Me, I love what shines. But Ife's heart whispered, not everything that shines is blessed. She left the room, her hands shaking slightly. The whispers from the night echoed again in her memory, truth must rise, even when it offends the night. She knew now that the matter was no longer about fabric or favoritism. It was about something darker, a spiritual imbalance creeping into her home. That evening, she visited her neighbor, Mama Tenny, a respected herbalist known for her wisdom and quiet faith. Ife trusted her not because of her herbs, but because of her insight. When she arrived, the older woman was sitting under a tree, grinding shea nuts and humming a song older than the stars. "My daughter," Mama Tenny greeted. "Your spirit is noisy. What troubles your peace?" Ife sat down and told her everything about the dress, the skirt, the lie, and the strange whisper she had heard. The woman listened without interrupting. When Ife finished, she dipped her fingers in palm oil and drew a line on the ground. "That mark you saw, the eye with the tear, it is old, very old. It invites confusion into the house. It feeds on silence and pride. It will twist love into suspicion if it is not stopped." Ife swallowed hard. "So, what must I do?" "Do nothing in anger," Mama Tenny said softly. "The ancestors speak through calm hearts, not fiery tongues. But you must guard your home. Burn no cloth, yet pray with clean water at the doorstep for 7 nights. Light no fire of revenge. Let truth reveal itself, for what is hidden cannot remain buried when the earth trembles." Her words sank deep like seeds in rain. Ife nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mama." That night, as she returned home, she stood by her gate and whispered, "If my home has been touched by deceit, let the truth rise." The wind stirred, gentle, then strong. Somewhere above her, an owl cried again, long and low. And within the house, the red skirt moved ever so slightly, though no one touched it. The ancestors had begun to listen. The night that followed was restless. The crickets of Oduma sang in uneven rhythm, as though they too sensed unease in the air. Clouds veiled the moon, and a fine wind rustled the plantain leaves behind Ife's kitchen. Inside, the house was quiet, yet the quiet felt alive, like a visitor holding its breath. Ife knelt by the window, whispering the same prayer Mama Tenny had taught her. Beside her sat a clay bowl filled with clean water. She dipped her fingers in and traced a circle on the floor. "Spirit of peace," she murmured, "if deceit walks among us, let your light expose its feet." At that very moment a faint sound came from the living room, a slow rustle, as of cloth moving against the chair. Ife froze. The children were asleep, her husband away at a late-night meeting, and Mama Obina had long retired to her room. Still, the sound continued, soft but steady. She tiptoed down the corridor, her wrapper brushing the wall. When she reached the doorway, her breath caught. The red skirt, the same one that had caused the storm, now lay on the chair. Yet it was no longer still. The fabric quivered gently, as though a hidden breeze moved through it. Then, for a heartbeat, it lifted ever so slightly, like a living thing drawing air. Ife's knees weakened. She whispered, "By the bones of my mothers," and stepped back. The bowl of water in her hand trembled, and one drop fell to the floor. The moment the drop touched the ground, the movement ceased. The skirt fell flat, lifeless again. Ife stood in silence for a long time before courage returned. She touched the fabric carefully. It was cold, unnaturally cold, like water from a deep well. The faint symbol near the hem seemed to glimmer under the lantern light. That night she barely slept. And when she finally did drift into uneasy rest, she dreamt of an ancient woman standing at a crossroads. The woman's eyes were hidden by a red veil, and her voice was as soft as the wind. "Child," the voice said, "a gift wrapped in deceit opens the door to wandering spirits. When a man forgets his sacred balance, those bound to him must choose between silence and storm." Ife woke with a gasp. Dawn had barely touched the sky. Birds called faintly outside, and her heart beat fast as a drum.